There's Jeff. You did.
I have 9 o'clock. We have a full house of the board. Amazing. I'll call the meeting to order. Any additions or changes to the agenda? All right. Minutes sent out previously. Any additions, corrections?
Yeah. Section 5.1. We were talking about safe streets for all. I mentioned Mansfield received money for bicycle pedestrian safety. And it says that I said we would have to look into matching funds, and I don't believe there are requirements for matching funds for those grants. I think I meant to say that we have to check if it would require matching. It's not that we would have to look for that. I just wanted to clarify that.
We can take that clarification. Anything else? All right, then the minutes are approved as amended. Audience of citizens. Great. Board business. Status of recommendations for speed control and safety alternatives to Board of Selectmen. So we took the month off last month because people know other issues in town, but there has since been movement on some of the recommendations that we have made to the Board of Selectmen. Specifically, at their last meeting, they authorized the drafting of an ordinance for automated traffic enforcement safety devices. I think putting out an RFP for potential vendors. I think starting to create the state mandated plan that would be required for that process. Does that all sound about right, Mark?
Yes.
It is worth noting they have not taken any direct action on any of our other recommendations at this point. I think at a public information meeting, there have been statements of cost concerns and practicality on some of those. We'll have to decide as a committee if we wish to either renew or modify any of those recommendations. Otherwise, it kind of seems unlikely to pursue any of them. In the meantime, I think we'd probably all appreciate if the Board of Selectmen kind of confirmed their intentions or not as to our other recommendations, if they've just decided to ignore them, or if that is them saying, no, they're not interested in pursuing them.
And the other recommendations was
law enforcement.
Well, that the budget determined that that's not happening.
I think that was kind of the broad statement that was applied to all of the other recommendations. They were not interested in pursuing anything that cost money.
Correct. The Board of Selectmen still have $100,000 to cut out of its existing budget, which we'll be doing that shortly. What about the rumble strips on 87? Was that a recommendation or
not? Did we adopt that as an actual recommendation? Okay, we recommended it's not necessarily as a speed control thing, but as a safety.
Right. So I think the board hasn't made that an official vote, but they have talked about it as revisiting that.
Mark?
What else? Yes, Jeff.
So I attended the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, and the selectmen, well, a selectman has moved the hot topic to a rotary in the center of town.
I'm going to interrupt you, Jeff. We'll get to that later in the agenda. I want to focus this what actions they have.
Hang on. Hold on. When we talk about actions, we've put actions in front of them, and now we're changing and we're going to something else. If we're just going to go about throwing things at the table and nothing's going to get done, what do we even need this committee for?
Well,
we've made recommendations and they need to start following through with the recommendations. That's all I'm saying.
All right. So go along with what Jeff is saying. Jennifer, go ahead.
I know, I wanna go ahead and let him finish, go through that, and then I will go.
Well, I think he said what he was gonna say on this. Do you have something to add to this topic?
Yeah, you added to about the police endorsement.
Yes.
So I have something to add with that, with, speaking with the town of Willimantic. I know that the officers of Willimantic are willing to come into Columbia to help out with the enforcement. I'm not sure because this is not my area of anything. I'm just bringing this up, that I don't know if that, what's it called? Grant, it's my husband.
Oh, okay.
If that grant that, there is with the troopers or something along with that can help pay for them to come in and help, but they are willing, because I know the troopers are thin. So is that an area that we can pursue?
We have started that. I've made that request to our trooper,
Okay,
and he's trying to organize that, but with the summer right now and vacations and training, they weren't able to pull together a team, but that is on the request list.
okay.
To have troopers from the surrounding area have a concentrated effort on speed
I'm talking
control.
about just all the troopers, I'm talking about working with the town of Willimantic. The
Well-
police department is willing.
And you know that from talking to,
I know that from talking to one of the 911 dispatchers who has spoken with people inside the department.
okay, I'll mention that to Gary.
Okay.
Okay. But back to, I just want to make sure we're addressing the whole list of your recommendations and that, are there anything specific that we did not address as a board of selectmen?
Well, at this point, they've taken formal action on one of our recommendations, so whether they discuss it informally, that they will look into it, or discuss it informally that they are not going to look into it, it's up to this committee to decide, do we wish to recommend they reconsider? I'm basically leaving this space open for any of us who wish to comment further on the existing recommendations, with the note that if there is not any forward motion on the other recommendations, they may simply just be ignored.
Well, I'm still trying to get at what exactly have they ignored on your recommendations?
And anybody wishes to?
Well, one question was the rumble.
Right, so that has not been officially determined yet, so that is something they're contemplating. So, and is there anything else? Because I know with one thought we talked about was improving the signage for what is the actual miles per hour of a road, but we're waiting for DOT to replace all the signage in the entire town, and they might relocate some of the positions of those signs in that process, right, Beth? Okay, so that is going forward.
We're on a list of. So I don't know. I won't be up to the contract.
But I know speed humps and speed bumps were not, that didn't go, the committee didn't recommend that to go forward, and the board of selectmen are not in favor of that at the moment. What else?
If anyone feels strongly about any of the recommendations we made and would like to remind us, please do.
But I don't know what the recommendations are. That's what I'm getting at. I don't know what we dropped the ball on. We meaning if I hadn't put it on the agenda.
This is not necessarily saying any ball has been dropped. This is more of the opportunity for the committee to say, well, I felt really strongly about this recommendation, but no action's been taken.
Okay.
I don't think we officially made a recommendation, but where's the conversation at with the turning lanes? Is that just going out?
We
No,
will,
because
That's a whole bigger discussion.
Well, I
So
understand
we'll bring that,
that's going to come up during new business today.
so we'll talk about that.
What about the mobile
Traffic signs.
traffic signs that we were talking about?
Yeah, we have no money for those now. So we moved the two of them we have.
I thought the state was gonna help us with that.
No, Mobile meaning speed signs indicating
Yeah.
how fast you're going.
Hey, you're going this fast.
So we have two, and we moved them from Whitney to Pine and from Cards Mill to Lake. So that's where the new locations are. So we're moving them around.
I have seen them working in those locations.
Okay, good.
Also, if we wanted additional ones, that is something that we could apply for grant money for. That's an action. Because there are grants that are going, obviously money is tight, so looking into some of those things.
Can you send information to me about those grants? And we'll bring them up at the next meeting.
And I'll stay in touch with the T2 Center because that's where we have our last two that are working right now. They gave them to us.
So when was it on Whitney? I think I probably missed that.
It was on Whitney for months and months.
Missed it.
Yeah, and then the problem we have with Whitney was no one liked the location, so we decided to move it to another complaint area
I
that
know
we
there's a
have trouble.
permanent one on Whitney for that. We put a temporary one?
None of them are permanent. They're solar powered and they're not easy to move.
Because you're not
That's
talking
the
about,
one you're thinking of.
right,
What?
Look like on the
Where
trailer.
the yeah. No, it's on signposts.
okay, that is, okay, sorry.
Yeah, other towns have trailer mobile ones. We do not.
And we can't get those.
We could if we find a grant. At the moment, I don't have a budget for them.
Still on the same topic of Board of Selectmen's actions, they mentioned they're going forward with putting together the state mandated plan for potentially bringing ATESDs into operation in Columbia. They didn't talk very much about that, but I had a couple of concerns about the order of operations. I think I've mentioned in the past that I don't think it's appropriate for a vendor selection to be deeply coupled with the putting together of the plan itself.
No, the vendor would have to be chosen first. You couldn't ask a vendor to put together a plan and then put it out to bid.
Wouldn't the town put together the plan?
Town would put together the bid. The vendors are part of putting together the actual plan.
Including the documents that the state.
Yes.
needs? Okay.
Yeah, so I think the first act is to put an RFP out for the actual vendor and have your committee interview them.
Is that how other towns have been doing it?
I believe so, because the vendors have offered to write the actual plan the state needs. And I've told the specific vendor we've been talking to, DACRA, that it's going to go out for an RFP first.
Mm-hmm.
If you're chosen, then I'd appreciate the help in putting together that plan.
On that note, there is a pre-qualified vendor list that CROG put together a while back.
Yes.
There are a few vendors that are on there, and I'm wondering if there's any interest in this committee on ensuring that if the town uses a vendor, it is from that pre-qualified vendor list. Just an open statement, Sherry.
I think that would be wise to recommend that.
The reason I note this is because there are dozens of vendors of automated traffic enforcement devices all over the country. Some of them are new and inexperienced. Some of them have been around for decades. I don't know which ones will end up bidding on this, but
And when we talk about reviewing bids and contracts, I think the town should go with whatever is most beneficial to the town. I don't care if they're on a Connecticut list or not. If it's beneficial to the town and it's more beneficial than other vendors, perhaps they'll wind up on the list.
Well, I wonder what criteria they are using to recommend these vendors, because it seems like if they looked at them objectively and decided that they're, doing a better job, then it would be better to go on this recommended.
I guess that would be the if they've been looked at objectively, because I know in other areas of Connecticut government, these lists are basically
So
almost lobbied.
basically,
for
the
these money.
the process
Well, that's,
the process by which they put together their list was they put out their own RFI, I guess, and vendors were welcome to submit for pre-approval and provide necessary information. It's my understanding that a number of vendors applied and not all of them were pre-approved. They found concerns with some of the vendors they chose not to pre-approve, and that might be information we can potentially attain from CROG when we're going over our own bids that we receive, and we can use that information as we see fit.
So my viewpoint is CROG's looking out for CROG, not Columbia. Columbia is looking out for Columbia.
Well, and I do know that DACRA is not on the CROG list. And I forget, I don't know the reason why. I don't think at the time they were part of that process of being pre-approved. But they said their advantage over the vendors that are on that list is that their software was originally designed for courtroom management of due process of going to court, and that they can do a better job of that aspect than the other vendors. So I think it'd be worthy to include them in the RFI.
How many vendors are we speaking to?
I think CROG only has 2 on their list, don't they? Three?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Um,
we look at least 4.
Approached whom when it comes to DACRA?
DACRA approached us. Just because we didn't know how to start this whole process of looking at it. So that's where the concept of street cameras came from, was cold call from DACRA through myself.
Anything further on that specific topic of vendors? Next item of concern I had was how the plan will put together potential locations for cameras, what data will be used to influence those, and is it possible that we can point to whoever is responsible for that to our own collection of problem reports, which may highlight some of the areas of concern.
So in the past, when we did look at data to see if we had a problem, the right way we found out was we had DACRA work with Gary Allen, our state trooper, to identify the worst speeding locations in Columbia. And then they set up lines on the road to determine how many cars were speeding, and they evaluated. So, but that process would have to start over. And with the vendor we choose, whoever that may be, would do that whole process again of evaluating exactly where to put the cameras. And then that would be in the report to the state for the DOT approval.
Any other questions on that specific topic?
The locations, are we focusing on where fatalities and crashes are more so than?
Yes. Yes, so they already had ideas of putting a camera on 87 up near Whitney, between the bad curve and Whitney, to get things slowed down in that area where we're having the worst accidents. And then the other areas of concern are in front of DPW to Dunkin' Donuts. We're having bad accidents in that area, specifically when people, just like out here on 66, our 2 main intersections on 66, Pine and West, those 2 intersections were getting rear ends like we just did the other day. The woman rear-ended the person trying to turn left off of 66 and destroy both cars. So it was a really bad accident. So those are the areas we're going to focus on. How do we slow people down where we're having the worst accidents?
Anything else on that, on locations?
The vendors.
Sure, we'll go back to vendors.
Do we know which vendors that Marlboro is using or no?
Marlboro's using DACRA.
It is my understanding that DACRO saw the writing on the wall before the state even passed its legislation and hopped around the state a lot.
Oh, sure.
All right. There was a question brought up at the Board of Selectmen meeting. It's come up a couple times, a question of civil citations versus due process. It's come up enough that at this point, I feel like, two different schools of thought on it, and I feel it could be beneficial, at least from our perspective, of what is the reality here. This is something that we kind of figure out once and for all, so that as we're continuing to have discussions, we know what the actual law is. Would it be prudent for us to advise the board to consult with the town attorney for a definitive interpretation on this, one way or another? All right, hearing nothing.
Things under that or not, but how are we going to, so how, I know you guys spoke about this kind of in the first meeting that I was trying to get voted in, so I can just kind of figure out sometimes on this matter. But for now, can I ask those questions? So when they populate the citation, the company, correct?
When you get a citation, the first aspect is the company reviews the photo in the first screening to make sure it's clearly, you can read the license plate and that there was an infraction and it's over the mile per hour that we set. Most towns are 10 to 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. Then that packet, it's sent in packets of like 25 violations per packet to the first screener. This first screener is someone we probably hire. And Marlboro right now, it's taking 15 minutes a morning to go through the packets and decide. You hire you're allowed to pay people out of the ticket revenue. And then in that first pass, you determine if everything, you agree that that packet is clean and the person truly violated the whatever speed limit we have and that you can read the license plate. And then that is sent back as a okay to send a ticket. And then when you get the ticket, you have an online system to appeal that ticket. And then you're either denied or accepted. And then you also could then, if you're denied, you could request an in-person appeal. That would be the second appeal. And then that in-person appeal would be a committee that we had put together. And Marlboro does it, I think, twice a month.
So the first appeal, that goes to the committee or that goes to the person that's online? Who does that go to? Does that go to the person who sends out violation? Or who does that go to? That goes to the company.
Okay, I'm confused.
But you said that you can do online, you do it online, and if they.
You get a ticket and you go online and you say, you look at all the reasons you can appeal and you say, for this reason, I don't think this ticket's justified. And then the appeals would be looked at by us, whoever we put in charge of that. And then they'll determine whether that appeal is relevant. And then you have a second stab at it if you were denied at an in-person committee or person that we hire.
Okay. All right. Because now, right now in Florida, they have the judge that has said that this is unconstitutional because you cannot face your accuser. So you're saying that they are going to have the process of them coming from the committee.
Right, and this is a civil fine, not a state or federal fine.
Right.
So I guess that makes a difference.
Well, they are the same thing, and they're just, you can't see the person's face in Florida either, it's just the license plate in the school zones.
So this was why I brought up this question, because there's the unanswered question of, do civil citations qualify for the full due process? And I'm not an attorney. I know what I think may be true, but I think we have a town attorney for a reason.
I can get an opinion on that.
I think the tough part is you don't have the town attorneys looking in. This could go to higher level courts and then we're stuck with what the decision is. And this is what the town attorneys think.
But at the very least, we'll have an attorney's opinion to act off of, as opposed to a bunch of fully unqualified people offering many opinions.
No, I agree. I don't think we're qualified to make that assessment. I'm just saying that there's lots of attorneys with lots of opinions, but if you have a court ruling that comes down, it ultimately doesn't matter what their opinions.
Anything else?
I got a question on that, so if they don't pay, what's the process?
It goes to our, the same agency we hire to do collections of taxes. So there's a collection agency
Collection fees.
that would,
And then we don't pay it, we ignore it.
then it'll be on their credit record as that you haven't paid a fine.
We don't want to do this on, right?
Not currently. The state is looking at potentially amending legislation that they would put a block on DMV renewals.
At the moment, it's not linked to DMV.
So basically they can say, you know, screw you, Columbia, I'm not gonna pay it, right?
At the moment, you have that right at not paying a civil fine, and it's not linked to DMV. The reason your taxes are linked is that you can't
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
do anything without having a clean record with your taxes.
I have a problem with that. Because, so my daughter's car is registered in my name and she's in college. She gets a ticket. I don't even know about the ticket. We get mailed to you.
It'll be mailed to you
As the register.
as the registered owner. The registered owner gets the ticket,
Okay, but I was driving that car.
right?
The state statute states that it's the responsibility of the owner of the vehicle to ensure that their vehicle is operated in a safe manner.
You'd have to call your daughter and say, honey, you owe me
Same thing as
$65.
if you park at a parking meter and it expires and you're gonna get a parking ticket. If you had lent your car to somebody, it's still gonna be written in the name of the registered owner.
And
This would be no different if your daughter or my daughter was in California and got a ticket. It's going to come back to the registered owner.
right, I understand.
Or a toll booth, you go through a toll booth, you don't pay, the owner gets the ticket.
So when it's a car rental, and sometimes somebody looks for a fleet, let's say, you know, plumbing place there on the 6th of Andover, they got a ton of trucks, so they drive through in one speed, how is that gonna be?
The owner gets the ticket, and then you'd have to figure out who rented the truck and forward the fine on to that person.
Or they would probably just automatically charge your parking.
Right. So this will become an issue. It's expanding at light speed, so it's going to be a new reality.
Right, so it's gonna be an expense for us that we just cut a budget that it can be expensive.
Nope, it's not an expense for us. There's no cost to this system, except the employees that you'd have to pay to help process the tickets and adjudicate the appeals, and then the revenue so far from every town I've looked at has exceeded those costs. And then that revenue has to be used by state statute to improve safety conditions of the roads and highways. So it can be used to offset costs or to improve safety conditions or buy new speed signs or whatever you want to do. Fix bad shoulders on your roads that are causing problems.
One thing I'd like the lawyer to look at is this came up with a conversation I was having with somebody. What is the deal if somebody's driving, let's say, from here to New Haven, and they drive through multiple towns with multiple cameras? Nobody stopped them to tell them that they were speeding, and then they continue on all the way down, so they get tickets in 3, 4 places on the same day.
they could.
So is that double jeopardy?
I mean, if you speed in front of 4 different police officers in one day, they'll give you
Yeah,
4
but
different tickets.
you weren't stopped. I just have a feeling the lawyer's gonna have a field day with that and say, no, if he was speeding, why didn't you stop him?
Well, the problem we're having,
Picture of him and you didn't take action.
the problem we're having is a majority of drivers are speeding at all times. And it seemed to have gotten worse after COVID, when the highways were empty and people started speeding and haven't slowed down.
I think it was more have to do with defunding the police than anything else, because police officers were being crucified for pulling people over.
I'm gonna pull the topic back to what we're talking about here, not gonna stop. I'm judging it as not. Let's go back to the topic of, do we have anything else on this specific matter or anything else covered by the Board of Selectmen in their recent actions or our ongoing recommendations to them? Hearing nothing, on to the next item. Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. At our last meeting, we looked into this. There's money we can get to do things. And we said, everyone, you have some homework. If you have an idea for what you would like to do with an application from the town for these funds, please come here. The one that was stated in the last meeting was potentially we could do sidewalks. Anybody have any additional ideas?
On the topic of sidewalks or?
On the topic of Safe Streets and Roads for All grant
So
funding.
more ice roads would ask.
Yes.
I think bike path would be something to look into. It widens the road, gives the walkers as well as the bikers a place to go. And then you don't have the added concern of maintenance as you do with sidewalks. Because you would plow a bike path just as you would a road. It would need people shoveling or
That's interesting.
Are roads wide enough to have a bike path on each
well,
side?
that's what the grant is for. It would allow you to widen the road and it would pay for the reconstruction of
Okay.
the road, which would include proper base, drainage. So you kind of get soup to nuts and
Would there be any segregation from the roadway to the bike path?
it would be
Divider?
like the painted strips on
On 66?
66 going into Hebron. That's where a lot of towns are using the painted.
So no physical
So no
dividers.
physical barrier that way. You can still plow.
You can still plow it,
Just as you would.
Would we have to acquire people's properties? Or is that?
Well, it would be within our right of way. So essentially homeowners might feel like you're approaching into their yards, but typically we own 25 feet from the center line, which gives us anywhere between 5 and 6 feet off the edge of the road.
Would seem like it's taking in front of our house, but it's really not.
That seems like a good thought because, the people are out there and so this problem is an existing problem.
When I always, when I'm on 66, yeah, when I'm on 66, to walk to him, plan to walk to the park. I like start across the street so I can walk towards the traffic, because I'm on the Pine side. So I walk, so I can walk in traffic and, yeah, I mean, I would enjoy that.
And I think that it's a potential lawsuit because there's so many people out walking where there's a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I mean, I was just
Somebody
somebody
gets-
years ago.
That's.
Well, the other thing too is you need to have these in place. Let's just say they decide to pave the rest of 66 towards Columbia because they've already done the whole Hebron section. If you're not in line for wanting bike paths and safety cushions, it'll all of a sudden they'll be paving without our knowledge, and that won't be incorporated.
So that paving was state then, or?
All state. So 66 is a state highway.
State would just have to do that, and you come out the town?
Well, it was a joint project with the town to improve walkability, I'm sure, in the whole downtown area. Because that was a major sidewalk.
To find out why those lines were put there. I was told that if the road is already wide enough, like, 66 is already wide enough, they will automatically going forward do that when we do the road. That's what I was told
Okay.
by, somebody, that I called in the area of bicycle and pedestrian safety for the Department of Transportation. No, there was.
State.
I called the state and they said, yes, that is something that, and it's I think they're also doing that 6 where they just repaved. I've noticed they've got
Yeah.
white lines there. I think that's in there as well.
I'm just not for the sidewalk.
So it sounds like the state will go ahead and do that on the state roads. And potentially we are talking about maybe bike paths on local roads that could fit them.
Well, I would say that I don't believe 87 is currently wide enough for them to automatically do that. So like you were saying, would have to request that they widen the road with a grant or something. I think that right now,
The grant
87
would
isn't
cover.
wide enough for them to put that white automatically. It'll only happen if the road is already wide.
So that could be a request if this committee said, I'll just throw it out there, we want Hennequin Lake and 87 so that from the town green all the way to Rec Park, you'd have a bike path the whole way. And we look for grants to achieve that.
Yeah.
Then we're on record that that's a goal the town wants.
So we have 2 potential proposals for what we might request for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Sidewalks, bike paths. There might be some overlap between those just because of their adjacency, but we would probably want to pursue one of those, at least in an initial grant. Any other suggestions for ideas?
I do. I have another idea, and that is to improve the intersection where Pine and Hennepin cross 66, because that's a particularly dangerous spot, and we're would like to be able to utilize the park there. So you can also request grants just to make a plan and assess an area if you're not.
I was going to bring up that down at West and that intersection down there, since they put in the turn signal, the turn lanes, that intersection has gotten better. So I have lived at the Pine and Hennepin for 18 years. If we just at this last accident that we had, I directed the traffic for the hour. They didn't send a volunteer firefighter, so I was the one that directed the traffic. And my husband and I discussed it, and you got to have a blinking light there. How many people know what the blinking light is, and the yellow and the red, right? Because he's like, how many people did you talk to tell us to turn around? And I said, at least 100. He said, right. And out of that, what were the age and what was the demographic? And he was right. There was young kids going to Eastern. There was young kids driving with their parents. There were people who didn't speak English very well, who more than likely don't know what that is. Go away, right? So take that down and we put it in turn signal, because that red light, that flashing light, is confusing people. They're not knowing what's going on. And what happened there was that person, the Jetta, was sitting there to turn left onto Pine Street, and that Chevy came flying down the hill. And if that Jetta would have been in a turn lane, that Chevy would have never plowed right into that Jetta.
So can we ask the state to look into?
We have put that on our list of concerns, of a major concern for an intersection.
I mean, 18 years.
Presumably, that is something
That is
that would be similar to this design
Yes,
for this intersection, so.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna we have a lot to cover. I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep people really focused on topic here, or else we'll be here till noon. So we have 3 potential topics for this grant: sidewalks, bike paths, potentially funding for intersection improvements. I
Well,
think we
and
can generalize.
Do we want to include sidewalks? Because the effort for sidewalks would be daunting.
It was brought up. It was the only one brought up last time, so
But I think best idea focusing on bike paths would be achievable,
Yeah.
right? I think that's a good focus.
any other ideas?
So let's
Otherwise-
scratch sidewalk and focus on bike paths.
So let me ask you this, Mark, in order for us to apply for this grant, that is something the town would do? Would it be beneficial for the committee to make it?
I'd like a subcommittee to help me write the grant. You know, we could get together and decide what language is needed to state our case, that this is important and why, and
Can we make our own subcommittees or is the board of selectmen?
no, make within your committee, help me
I
out.
think the first phase of that Safe Streets is a plan, an action plan. And then.
Would that have to be done by an engineer? We'd have to contract
So that
out.
would be the first phase of the grant would be for engineering.
Because back 10 years ago, when we looked at a sidewalk all the way down 87, I did hire an engineering firm and they did a rendition and gave me an estimated cost of, back then, I think it was 800,000. It's probably well over $1 million now.
So would you
But-
want a recommendation? Would you want us to create a subcommittee to investigate applying for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant for the purposes of creating
Yes.
bike paths?
Let's do that and let's at least figure out everything we need to do clearly and start the process. And then if it comes into funding issues or hiring a subcontractor, we'll bring it back to the committee, and that would then have to be forwarded to the board of selectmen to make that
I'd
happen.
like to make that motion.
To, put on the table that we do a subcommittee to write the grant for the safe sidewalk or safe, roads grant.
Motion.
So,
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Hands, just so I can count 1, 2, 3, 2, 2. It seems unanimous.
Great.
All right. Problem report review. Any new problems that have come into us that I haven't received?
No.
Okay. We continue to build our database. If in things town is looking at, they would like that information. It is freely available and out there. I'll continue to maintain it unless anyone says otherwise. On to new business, Route 66 and 87 intersection improvements. I included a digest of what was in the Board of Selectmen packet. Long story short, this has been put together by Prague as a technical memorandum as 2 options of alternatives for improving the intersection right over there. And to summarize it very briefly, they provide some diagrams of what this would look like, as well as level of service impacts for both alternatives compared to the baseline. And then there was some information about roundabouts in that packet as well. So to summarize this one chart, because there was confusion about this at the Board of Selectmen, I think 3 different people called them.
Nick is on this chart right
Yeah,
now.
this chart right here. So this chart here is showing level of service at the intersection. The top one is existing, and then the 2 below it are for each of the 2 alternatives that are presented in this packet. You'll see letter grades, and these are used all over the country to summarize level of service. And what these numbers next to them are representing is basically how bad traffic can back up in the worst case at this intersection. They call it the 95th percentile queues exceed capacity. So basically, if you see lots of red numbers, you're going to have backed up traffic. And in this case, it's showing that right now the intersection is receiving E grades in the directions you would think it would have, given traffic in the morning and the afternoon. And it shows a continued degradation of service over the next 25 years until finally both intersections will have failing grades. So I don't think any of us needs to look at a chart to say, hey, there's problems at that intersection, the least of which is traffic backing up. But that's the information that was chosen to go in here. I don't think they put information about crashes or anything else, but there's crash experience in one section here in a table, 5.3. So they have put together a brief overview of two recommendations, one which has been suggested in here before, which is to add turn lanes in both directions on 66 to turn on to 87, and the other which is to put a rotary roundabout traffic circle. You pick your favorite term. The question is, what action as a committee do we wish to take with regard to this, especially in our advisory capacity to the Board of Selectmen?
I've read over this, and looked at the long-term plan. And I feel like alternative one at left turn lanes is short-sighted because it will ultimately be problematic in the future. The roundabout, although I know it often is met with initial dislike, is very, it slows the traffic down but doesn't stop it, so it keeps people moving. And it slows them down right in our center where we kind of are always, I'm hearing a lot that people don't seem to recognize we are a town right here and they're blasting through all the time. If you come to a roundabout, you're gonna see this circle and this nicer looking thing that says, hey, there's a town here, slow down. I think that that's really important, and also the fact that it will improve traffic for a longer future than this other alternative. The other thing about the roundabout was, I think it's better looking and it's a better long-term. Oh, and I know the cost was a concern. Additionally, I know that there were design costs in the grant thing that I was looking at, and I don't know if they cover, well, you can apply for a grant to cover those additional costs for a town or not, but that was a thought I had.
I believe there are potentially grants to cover the design portion. And to clarify the costs for either of these, it would be on the town to do the design portion, and then it's lots of funds.
Lots of funds for the construction. And we'd have to use lots of funding because this is not a already designated priority roundabout that the state has determined. Once they looked at it, they felt that the roundabout was the best solution so that they would support it in lots of funding. But unfortunately, lots of funding requires the town to do the design costs.
So this was initiated by the town, not the state?
It was initiated by the town through the CROG. They have,
Or funded by the town?
no. CROG has they interview every town in the CROG, the 38 towns. And we went over with them all of our concern areas in Columbia. As a result of that, when they looked at this concern area, which is that intersection, they worked with DOT and came up with this concept. And then CROG presented it to us. So right now it's a concept presentation only to get our feedback.
Hold on, I'm going to call on Kristen first. She's had her hand up. Okay, Beth.
More the funding side of it, because right now we'll set money from the town.
Not It's LOTSIP, which is different than LOSIP. So you're right. LOSIP we use on roads, that's not effective. No, it's additional federal funding.
I, just wanted to, I guess, share my support of the turn lane plan versus the roundabout. The town I grew up in put in a roundabout at a problem intersection that's similar. And I had a unique perspective at the time because I worked for the state police. So it was supposed to solve this problem intersection. And what happened was actually more accidents at the roundabouts. People don't know how to drive. They cut lanes, they were driving through the center. We had tractor trailer trucks going through the center of the roundabout. We were just up there for a week and they actually planted this giant pine tree to try and stop cars from going through the middle of it. So the thought that roundabouts are just a magical solution to traffic problems and they slow every car down is not true. You're gonna change the traffic pattern, you're gonna change the accidents. Whether or not it ultimately helps will have to be reviewed, but it's not without its own issues, and I think that should be considered when you're talking about one plan over the other. Because traffic lights slow people down too. So
So
it's
as with
something to think about.
as with a lot of topics on this committee, we're going to have different schools of thought. I think I'll come in 1 second. One suggestion I might have is could we have a member of the committee, 2 different members of the committee, each look into each of the 2 alternatives and maybe come back at the next meeting and give us a little presentation of about 5 minutes with the details, some of which may not be in here, just so we can all kind of fully understand the information. You can advocate for your alternative over the other, and we'll hear information on both alternatives. And then as a committee, we can discuss potentially what action we'd like to take.
In addition to that, we could have members of this committee interview the T2 Center as one of their sources of information on turn lanes versus roundabouts.
Are they going to come in with a predisposition towards one alternative versus the other?
I don't know. I haven't talked to them specifically yet, so I don't know.
So, Nick,
Yeah, yes.
so I think there's a lot of things moving on with this committee and nothing's been done yet. I think the turn lanes are a cheaper solution to a town that is in financial struggles right now, and we don't need to pay engineering costs or try to figure out how to pay for a roundabout. We have a speeding issue that everyone's complained about, and we need to start resolving that. So we're putting a lot of things on the table and nothing's coming out the other end. We've given recommendations. Now we need to start seeing it on the other side, because all we're going to do is just keep piling a list up and we're going to forget where we started. And if I'm wrong, someone tell me, but there's a lot of things on the table right now and we keep adding more to them. But the roundabout is a cost initiative that we do not have the financial funds in this town to worry about right now. We need to find a way to make revenue. Not saying that putting the cameras up is to generate revenue, but our roads are suffering. And we just cut $600,000+ out of our capital fund budget for roads. We need to figure out other things instead of keep trying to push it more and more forward. I agree. Turn lanes would be great. Turn lanes at Pine and Hennequin, turn lanes at 66 and 87. No arguments. They have helped. I don't remember the lady's name that talked about Hunt Road and West. You are 100% correct. It's been less of an issue up there. Look at Route 6, Suicide 6. Every weekend I used to go there. Now we're not. Turn lanes, the road was widened. If we did it in these 2 areas, change the lights to give you turn signals, we could be fixing a lot of problems where we talk about safety and road construction. But I think this roundabout can go to the back burner, and we need to worry about other things in town, like get the signs up. And if it's going to take a while, then I don't know what else to do, folks, because we're not going to see any resolve unless we move on some of these initiatives we've already put forward.
Well, my question is, would LOTSIP funding cover the construction for either alternative? And is there a particular difference in cost in the design.
I'd have to
portion.
ask DOT that. I don't know if LOTSIP is needed for redoing the intersection for turn lanes. I'm not sure.
I know this is not me advocating for either. In fact, I will readily admit I don't have enough information on either of these alternatives, which is partly why I wouldn't mind having someone else on the committee gather that information and present it to the committee. But my thought is that roundabouts, even though they are construction, you think you're going from a square to a circle, they are not substantial long-term construction. I've literally seen a roundabout appear at an intersection in 24 hours before. That said, I think we need to understand the whole picture here. I think there are members on the committee who are particularly passionate about one alternative versus the other. So is their interest in us having members of the committee do a presentation on each alternative so that we have all of the information on them. My thinking is that if we have members who advocate for each one, it will be to their benefit to provide as much information as they can to suggest this is the alternative we should pursue.
I agree with Jeff. I think it's short-sighted to pursue the more expensive alternative when we know the town can't afford it, even if it
Sounds like you would like to do the presentation for alternative number one.
I'll give the presentation. Well, there is.
Wonderful. Do we have someone to do a presentation for alternative number two? Right. We'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. 5 minutes max, please. I think that's enough. There will be an audience of citizens coming up before too long, no worries. All right, anything else under the topic of Route 66 and 87 intersection improvements?
With the roundabout, we have a lot of trucks. So the tractor trailers, so we have to be wide enough for the one thing that makes me concerned about. Yeah, there's kind of trucks that go down.
I get that question every day. They exist all over the place, and tractor trailers are able to go through them.
Absolutely, I know that. I lived in Europe several years, and people know how to do them there. But here, they don't.
Tell me where there's a roundabout on a hill, because a tractor trailer truck sitting on a hill who's going to have to slow down to try to get in line to keep going straight on 66 coming up the hill. Tell me where there's a roundabout on a hill. I've never seen one. I'd love to know where there is. I'm not for or against it, but just sit at that intersection and watch the traffic coming through. I know my accidents are going to increase tenfold because these people don't understand this town. They think it's a straight go through, and they're going to take out that center island like there's no tomorrow.
Well, and also what about?
I'm going to short circuit this. We have 2 people who've signed up to present this information to us next meeting, and then we can talk about it till we're all blue in the face. All right. Next topic, committee member attendance and conduct. Everyone's here today. That's the first time that's happened in as long as I can remember. I wonder if it's because I put an item on here called committee member attendance. This has been kind of stewing for a few months, and we've informally talked about it on a couple of occasions. On more than one occasion, this committee's not had quorum, and as we meet once a month, not having quorum is pretty disruptive to the flow of our business. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. This isn't a problem that's exclusive to our committee. There are others in town that have this issue. Fortunately, we don't have as active and eager as of obligations necessarily. We don't have bills we have to sign off on each month. So, but at the same time, we have no shortage of citizens who would be willing to serve on this committee should openings present themselves. And so to that, I would potentially like to open discussions for adopting an attendance policy so that if we continue to have quorum issues in the future, we do not have to belabor the thought that there could be committee members who are not actively joining and participating, and we can open the door to folks who might want to. If there are any thoughts on that topic from anyone, please feel free to throw them out. John.
Probably change the time to the evening.
In order to have the staff support from the staff that we do, it needs to be during the day.
So then we're gonna come back to the same problem. It's like, even look at, like, we have one person in the audience. I mean, that's our average, I think, when we have two people in the audience, that's crowded. So I think we gotta read the room and say that, how come, we need things differently on this.
How many people do you think should be in the audience with each meeting?
How many chairs are there? I mean, like, when we go to the board of, select meetings, sometimes we have to go get chairs, and people are sitting out there.
Board of Selectmen covers a huge variety of topics.
I go to zoning meetings, and we also have the same issue. But we don't.
We
And I
will,
think that mainly it's time. I mean,
we will have an issue of people, our membership and audience being able to attend regardless of what time we select. If we select evenings, there will be parents with children who have obligations. They won't be able to attend. There's never going to be a time that makes everyone happy.
not
So
100%, but we probably have more people in the room. I mean, I get it. Nobody can make it 100%. Who here can make it 100%? I mean, we're gonna have issues.
this is more meant to address if
Yeah.
members become AWOL and simply continue to not attend meetings. It would be nice to have a policy in place for how to address that objectively, as opposed to, oh, this person keeps not showing up, we should totally get angry at them. And I don't want to do that either.
At this point, I don't think we've had an issue with people going, hey, well, people have been pretty communicative and they're gonna miss the meeting or what have you. I think if we're gonna consider something, I think we should consider moving the time and seeing if it works better.
I mean, my problem is why sometimes I miss it. Two reasons. One, it is vacation season. That's one. Number two, the VA does book at night. So I have VA appointments. I go to quite a few VA appointments. And I take that as priority.
So here's a situation I want to avoid, because this has happened twice now when we didn't have quorum. I did not receive advance notice of absences from members that would suggest we did not have quorum. If I knew 4 people weren't coming or 3 people weren't coming, I would say, we're not going to have quorum. Let's cancel this meeting. That's what I'd like to avoid.
What if we, give advance notice if we're not gonna be here?
So that's kind of what I would like to codify a little bit, a requirement for advance notice if you are unable to attend, fully recognizing you could have an emergency situation, but it's more of if you're simply not attending and not saying that you're not attending, and there are multiple members, current and former, who have been guilty of doing that. So I'm willing to table this for now if there does not feel like there is a concern, but it's something I'm keeping a close eye on. And please, if you know you're unable to attend the meeting, let me know at least 48 hours in advance, because if I get several of those, it'll allow me to send out a notice canceling the meeting with enough notice, or potentially rescheduling it if needed. Jennifer.
I need to put on record then right now that I have had an emergency, a family death, that I am taking care of the person, and I don't know from day to day how they operate from them. So I don't know from day to day if I'm gonna be, so I'm putting on record right now that I will do my best to let you know, but I could be called right now that I have to go.
All right.
So.
Can we address changing the time, like formally, instead of continuing?
You have the floor.
I would like to change the time. I think more people will be able to attend if the time is changed. Or at least trial changing the time.
I think we'll need staff input on that. Mark, we're discussing possibility of changing the time of this meeting.
Okay. Time would you like?
I know there's other meetings other nights. Is there like a time that would be advantageous to having this room, but still be like after working hours?
With staff support.
Well, that's a problem because we already have a lot of night meetings.
If we even push it towards the end of like Jen's day versus 9 in the morning.
The other note I'll make is that several other commissions and boards have requested staff support for night meetings, and should this one be moved to night and receive that support, those boards and committees will probably be up in arms.
Well,
But that might be
So-
a good idea, and
Yeah,
later,
but you
like during the
work right.
regular day, like 4 o'clock.
you
Yeah.
have to really.
So my question is, they're gonna be up in arms, but we're up in arms as well right now.
Oh, yeah.
So why are they getting the priority and not us?
They asked first. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just throwing out all the information that I have. And
What happens normally Jen does Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. And then other meetings have been added because they're during the workday that Jen's been available to. But the other departments in land use hire a Board of the Works clerk to do all the land use meetings, wetlands, planning and zoning, Board of Assessment Appeals, all those are handled by Mary Kay. So she's an employee down in the land use office. Other towns I've worked for hire, like the Board of Ed hires someone to do all their meetings. They're a citizen that comes and clerks their meetings. Because it's a lot of work to do minutes and prepare.
That having Jeff and Beth and our trooper here are really important to these meetings because they have information that we wouldn't be considering otherwise. And
So why can't they make the evening meetings?
Well, then that's not in their timeline. That'd be overtime.
But they did when they were trying to sell the cameras, they made time
Who's
That-
telling
my
Cam?
understanding is that was in their personal time.
for the meeting. No, he said that he altered his schedule.
He did. We requested for that special meeting for him to come in with a subject matter expert to
Oh.
discuss that at a town
I
meeting.
think he'd be able to come in every.
He wouldn't come in monthly, but he wouldn't alter his schedule monthly for a.
So that would be my
As
concern
long as
with,
let's say before, in corrections, and I know it's not law enforcement, but it is branch of law enforcement, criminal justice. And I was required to change my schedule for the needs of the state. I'm just saying that comes with the job description.
so what I want to be careful of is that when this committee was formed and continued to form and members have applied and joined the committee, it was likely with the expectation of this is when we meet. That's not to say that it changes, but we have to consider that if we do change the time, there may be members who are unable to attend at all at that time, and we would potentially exclude them from attendance and essentially kick them off by virtue of changing the
But
time.
in that same vein, we have people who can't join because they can't make this meeting time work. So
That's true.
you're still excluding people. It's just a matter of who you exclude.
Can't make
The other
everyone happy.
issue is availability. I'm just looking through the calendar, right? It would probably have to take a little bit of time, but availability of rooms. So I have to figure that out if you guys decided to do that.
Could
Not
we
quite sure.
ask the staff to come back with a list of options for once a month availability, and then we can explore those options and see which one might be most favorable to the committee, including remaining at the existing time.
Yeah.
We can do that.
We'll do that next time. Right. Great. All right. Next item, member conduct. Before I continue, I'm going to state that for this item, given its content, I am going to enforce strict procedure. Should you wish to speak, please raise your hand, or if you're Jeff, chime in quickly, put something in the chat, and await recognition before speaking. That said, everyone is going to have the opportunity to speak once I've finished, so please bear with me for a moment. I am reading from my notes because I want to make sure that I put this exactly as I have written it. It's been brought to my attention that one or more members of this committee has engaged in behavior outside these meetings, which can be viewed as potentially detrimental to the committee and its work. Now, I recognize most of us here are in our capacities as town residents, citizens, staff. We may not all be familiar with the finer intricacies of proper parliamentary procedure, and even those of us who are might not wish to practice the minutiae of it. However, the behavior that I have observed, which comes in the form of posting on social media and personal correspondence with other town bodies, should be obvious to those committing it as unacceptable. And it has not gone unnoticed by the public, as you'll see from a letter in your packet today. Now, I am not planning to call out specific instances of this behavior today, but I will explain the nature of the offenses so that those members who are in violation may take appropriate corrective action. Specifically, I will quote from Robert's Rules, newly revised, Chapter 20, Section 61, Paragraph 1 on disciplinary action. Although ordinary societies seldom have occasion to discipline members, an organization or assembly has the ultimate right to make and enforce its own rules and to require that its members refrain from conduct injurious to the organization or its purposes. No one should be allowed to remain a member if his retention will do this kind of harm. I'll put that another way. As a member, you have an obligation to accept the resolutions of this committee and to not take individual action that serves to contradict those resolutions. Your agreement to serve as a public official carries with it the duty to support the fundamental principles of our system of government. You are free to express your disagreements in public. Indeed, your free speech is unequivocally protected. Your membership on this committee, however, is not. You must not take even a single step to undermine the decision of a committee on which you are a member, because that would harm the organization which you have a duty to serve. Now, if having heard this, you are unsure how to proceed, you are welcome to discuss with me one-on-one in private, and I will talk to you about it. Or you can consult with your own counsel, whatever you feel you need to do. To share my personal perspective, the committee has resolved at least one decision with which I personally disagree. But as a member, and especially as chair, I am obligated to respect that decision and act in support of it. For those who have acted in opposition to decisions adopted by this committee, please examine the statements you have made in public. Should you find any which are in opposition to your duties as a member of this committee, please take the proper actions to retract, correct, and perhaps even apologize for those missteps before our next meeting. Alternately, you are welcome to offer your resignation in lieu. And at our next meeting, for any such instances not corrected so, I will use the full authority of this chair to ensure the integrity of the committee by any and all allowable means. And going forward, I implore everyone to be mindful of the statements they make and the actions they take in public forums, in person and online, regarding topics taken up by this committee. For now, I will enact the mildest response afforded the chair when it comes to redress of misconduct, and that is simply to state that I call the members to order. And with that, I will open the floor to board member discussion. I know this is a very heavy subject, but it is one that we have legal obligations as members of a town committee to respect and honor. And we've been formally called out on misconduct. So I have to bring it up. If there are questions or concerns you wish to bring up here, please do. I will linger after the meeting if you'd like to talk to me one-on-one. I don't hold anything against anybody personally. We're all new to this in one capacity or another. Mistakes can be made. I just want to make sure that we're doing right by the town. Anything from anybody here?
So we're being called out for voicing our opinion, like I'm confused.
As I said, there are actions that the committee has taken, recommendations, resolutions we have made, and then there are members of the committee who have publicly spoken out in opposition to those. And that is not something you are allowed to do, because it becomes a question of we are not operating as a committee as a whole if individual members are acting against the interests of the committee. This is.
So you're not being pointed out to any particular person.
I have several things that have been shown to me about one or more members of this committee. Again, I do not want to call out individuals at this meeting, but
I mean, we don't lose our rights as private citizens to be against something, like, just because we serve on a committee.
But if you make public statements in opposition to resolutions of the committee, which you are more than welcome to do, it puts you in conflict with your membership on the
They
committee.
want to point fingers, but they don't want to come forward.
No, they've come forward.
Nick doesn't want to call people out right now.
If I call people out now, then we would potentially,
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
I
understand.
can't even, if it's.
let me put this another way. This is a very friendly advisement, warning to be careful of what you say and what you've said.
Correct.
I understand.
I mean.
So here's the problem I find myself in. If I call out these specific items, then the committee will need to take those items up, which could potentially lead to disciplinary action. I would like to keep this a friendly committee and not do that if at all possible.
I hear you, but still, we don't know what to correct, but yet we're being warned.
If you'd like to talk to me individually, I'm happy to, but
I think this is a good forum. I mean, why does it have to be so secretive?
So you're not allowed to, outside of this meeting, if a resident asks you your opinion?
that's acceptable. But if you are making statements that are in statements in a public forum, which includes posting online, it includes authoring letters to other town bodies, and you are saying you are in opposition to something that this committee has resolved it is in support of.
So when I had a problem with you speaking at the town meeting, like on behalf of us, like we were saying, like this was what the committee believed, I was like, no, it's not.
I was not acting in opposition to what
That's
this,
right.
Your title, and
You-
then
yeah.
you're also a citizen.
You gave a disclosure.
I disclosed that I was speaking as myself, but I also was not acting against the committee. And if I was,
You were acting,
You spoke for the committee without.
Steve,
And we were not aware of that you were speaking. We were not, hey, I'm gonna be speaking.
I think you're missing a very important point here. I'm also going to point out that we're still in the period where I'm asking people to raise their hands and be recognized before we speak. So in general, if I'm speaking, please raise your hand. I will call on you when I'm finished.
Oh, I started and I thought I was.
I'm going to ask that the members come to order. Now, I think the important thing that you're missing is that if you are speaking against a resolution that the committee has already adopted, I was speaking to explain a resolution that we have adopted. I was asked by the Board of Selectmen specifically to provide that information.
Okay,
If you
I
think-
would bring a point of order. Kristen also tried to speak in that very same meeting, and
This is not a valid point of order. You are not recognized at this time. If you're not sure what the point of order,
Time when I started this, I don't think 5 minutes went past.
I'm not sure you're familiar with parliamentary
We said
procedure.
5 minutes.
I'm going to ask you, John, to come to order, please.
Go ahead.
JC.
Steve asked that you, like, recognize you as chairperson of the committee to speak on facts, like, on recommendations the committee made, and you stated you came as chair of the committee. I have a clip of the meeting on my phone if you want to see. But you're saying right now that you, like, didn't do that. No one asked you as chairperson of the committee, but both you and Steve stated that is why you.
Yes, I was asked to present that information in my capacity as chair of committee to explain the resolutions we had made. And then the information that I gave in a presentation was not in that capacity. I spoke in 2 different capacities and delineated that in that meeting. John.
So if you're selected by somebody from the Board of Selectmen, you can speak out.
Well, it's not speaking out, it was providing information.
So they have permission as to my free speech.
I'm not sure what you mean. I was asked to give information by the Board of Selectmen, and I gave it in the capacity of my knowledge and experience. Hearing nothing forward, Nothing further. I'm gonna move us forward. We have lots of correspondence, and we will probably continue to have lots of correspondence. Please feel free to read it on your own time if you would like to call any particular attention to any correspondence in particular. I welcome that, but to summarize what we have the letter which prompted the discussion we just had, and then a number of items in testimony in support or against various topics we've discussed today as well. Anything further on the various correspondence that we have received? Some of this I will note is going to Board of Selectmen because we're an advisory arm of the Board of Selectmen. If it is on a transportation topic, it's going to automatically come to our attention as well. All right. Audience of citizens. And if you'd like to speak, please just raise your hand. I'll call on you and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Maggie Paul, and I live at 47 Route 87, which is that this curve where there's been accidents forever and ever. We had a car, my husband was in a head-on collision, which was not his fault, coming around the curve near the dam. This was many years ago. And we lost the car even after having just replaced the transmission. Now, since that time, the accidents have always been along this area. But more recently, ever since 87 was paved, it's gotten really bad. And I've come over the years and I talked to Steve Efford and to Mark about my concerns. So I was very happy to hear about a transportation committee being formed because I think it needs to be. Very much so. I don't want to get into all the accidents. Recently, we almost got hit our house with a car, and it almost hit our car as well. I just wanted to speak to some of the points you've been raising. I think they're important. And I'm jumping around. One was the dangers of Whitney Road and Route 6. And I'm sorry to hear that there was just a recent accident, because I've been meaning to say that at that point, at the end of Whitney, when you look left, the foliage has started to grow, and you almost have to pull out into Route 6 to be able to see the lane now. So that needs to be taken care of. As far as the turning lanes in the roundabout, I don't know if that just hasn't ever existed in Connecticut, but my husband's family used to come from New Hampshire. We used to go up through the Keene, New Hampshire area quite a bit. And when I first heard they were going to do the turnabout, I thought that's going to be a nightmare. But they actually combined the turning lanes with the turnaround, and it has worked out beautifully. These are major highways that come together. And because we were going off in a different direction, we could turn off before we ever even got to the turnaround. So it really alleviated the combination of each of those. And then I guess the other thing is listening to the committee right now, and I have been the director of an agency in the past where I had a board of directors. And although I am not an expert on Robert's rules, that is an important thing, and that's what I think you're trying to bring up. If people don't follow Robert's rules, it's not saying that you can't speak up about your personal ideas, but what they're trying to explain is if you're agreeing to work, in our case, on town business, you have to agree to the rules, because otherwise it's chaos. And that's usually most bodies of government, whether it's at the federal level or state or municipal level, as well as other entities, have to follow Robert's rules. And it is very complicated, so I'm not saying it's easy to understand. I think you tried to explain it fairly well. That's it.
Thank you very much. I think that covers our audience of citizens. So, board member comments, JC.
Well, I can give a message in the chat from our.
Oh, so I'm very sorry. I will never actually see those.
James Locke said, cite the statute that says committee members can't disagree publicly with the committee.
I cited Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, which, as far as I understand, are the binding resolutions of all town commissions formally adopted, and that section is Chapter 20, Section 61, Paragraph 1, which I read in full. All right. That, I think, covers our audience of citizens. I see nothing further in the chat. So, board member comments. I have some, but by all means. All right, I'll go to mine. There were a number of citizens and selectmen who spoke on various transportation topics at the most recent Board of Selectmen meeting. I was kind of disappointed to hear a lot of misinformation, confusion from almost every speaker on every side of every issue. I think the town may not be doing a great job of addressing repeated concerns or conveying information in a manner that is easily digested and disseminated. I know we had that public information session a little while back. Some people were able to attend. It's available online for viewing, and I definitely recommend people watch that in full. But I think a lot of people are obtaining the basis for their statements and beliefs from erroneous sources. We're an advisory committee of town citizens and employees. We're operating from a position of our limited experience and knowledge, but hopefully we're keeping an open mind and a commitment to thinking critically on the subjects that are being discussed. And everyone to please take time to inform yourselves from a variety of vetted sources. Please don't believe everything you read online. That's just my comment of the day. Anybody else? We've reached the end of the agenda, and there's a motion that could be made by somebody. Oh, there's a motion to adjourn. And we are so adjourned. Having reached the end of our agenda, 10:28. I will linger a bit for anybody who would like to chat. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.